Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing a combo deck that I like to call Lash Gordon. This is a Thassa's Oracle combo deck, but the route to Thassa's Oracle is a little bit different to some other decks. So we have the Thought Lash, so this is the Lash to the Thassa's Oracle's Gordon. So Thought Lash is an enchantment, cumulative upkeep, exile top card of your library, and has whenever a player doesn't pay Thought Lash's cumulative upkeep, they exile all cards from their library. But the activated ability is what we're really here for. So we can exile the top card of our library to prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you this turn. So what we can do is we can play a Thassa's Oracle. If we have the Thought Lash in play, once the trigger goes on the stack, we exile our library, and then Thassa's Oracle wins us the game. The other route to the combo is Paradigm Shift. So we exile all the cards from our library, and then our graveyard gets shuffled and becomes our library. So we can play this early on, and then just have the Thassa's Oracle kill pretty quickly off of the Paradigm Shift. So that's pretty darn cool. This deck got some new technology in Aether Drift in Stock Up, which we're seeing in quite a few combo decks. Basically, Ancient Tomb combo decks are running this one. So this is 3 mana. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put 2 of them in your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. When we're trying to assemble an A plus B combo, this feels like a really useful card to do exactly that. When Dig Through Time was legal, a lot of A plus B combo decks were pretty much the best thing you could be doing. Let's see if Stock Up can make us feel similarly. So what else do we have in this deck? We've got some Step Through to help find our Thassa's Oracle. We've got some Impulse, again, to help find our Thassa's Oracle and our other bits and pieces. We have Lorien Revealed, which can draw a bunch of cards or be an additional part of our mana base in terms of getting us islands. And we've got some protective elements in the form of Force of Will, Chalice of the Void, which is why we're not running any of the 1-drop cantrips, so we can chalice people out. And then we also have some Sink into Stupor, which can be lands, or it can be a protection spell to either bounce something scary out of play, or to bounce a spell on the stack and give us a bit more breathing room. That's pretty much it. We've got a couple of Otawaras in here, and we've got some Chrome Moxes as well that we can accelerate out, so we can play a Chalice on 1 off of either Ancient Tomb or Chrome Mox. And we've got 3 Cavern of Souls, so we can play an uncounterable Thassa's Oracle. I played this deck before on the channel. You can search through if you want to see some different builds of this, but I'm curious to see how Stock Up fits into this list. Sideboard-wise, we've got more counter magic for some combo decks. We've got some Graveyard Hate. We've got some protection against decks that are trying to counter our spells. We've got an Ensnaring Bridge we can sit behind because we don't care about combat. A Ratchet Bomb because we're blue, so we don't really destroy stuff. So we've got this thing which can destroy various things. And some Hermit Druids, which give us the ability to make some uncounterable spells or just have a creature that can counter some of our opponent's spells. And this is tutorable via the Step Through if that's a thing we're interested in doing. And that, lovely people, is Lash Gordon. So please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out. And how do you feel about me having the view like this of cards rather than in the stacks? Let me know. I want to give the best experience to you lovely people out there. Okay, let's do some Lash Gordoning. If you want to play some Eternal Magic, why not check out the New York City first annual Eternal Team Trios Winter Tournament. This is a legacy, modern and vintage team event, and team events are always some of the best of Magic events going, so why not check it out if you're in the area. Our opening hand does not have any mana, so I'm afraid we're going to have to send this one back. This one has too much mana. Oh, I think I forgot to mention the Harbinger of the Seas in the deck tech. This is just a nice disruptive piece that's pretty good into the meta right now. I don't think we can keep a hand that's just Harbinger of the Seas, though. Alright, I think this is the best of the bunch so far. We probably have to keep this. I don't think we can afford to keep this Force of Will, because we're going to lose way more of our hand, and I guess I get rid of the Harbinger of the Seas here. So we've got half of our combo. We've got Stock Up, so we can find some lands, find the Thassa's Oracle, and then we're just good to go. So Thought Lash gives us a lot of protection against aggressive decks anyway. Tundra, Ponder, this could be something along the lines of a control deck. It could be a Stifle Naught list. Could be Cephalid Breakfast. Cephalid Breakfast is the one I least want to see here, to be honest. A Step Through. Alright, we'll just play out this basic island, and we will pass. There we go. Turn 2, Chalice on 1. That should hopefully be good into our opponent's deck, but we'll see what they're up to. Basic island and a Shuko. So we are on Cephalid Breakfast. So this Chalice might not do anything. Okay, this Chalice is not going to do anything here. A little bit on the awkward side for us. This is a bit of a tough call. I don't think playing the Chalice of the Void matters here. It does stop them cantripping, I suppose. Alright, we'll play this in case they don't have the combo right now. This at least stops them from digging. Because they could go like Ponder into Cephalid Illusionist and win. We will need to find a land for this Stock Up, but that's a problem for later. I think we're probably just going to die this turn. Okay, we'll let them peel off their deck, and we get a little look to see what sort of configuration they are. I'd be very surprised if they weren't a Nadu configuration. It just seems like the correct build of Breakfast these days. So what they're going to do is they're going to repeatedly target their Cephalid Illusionist, and every time they do this, the Zephyr Illusionist ability triggers, which says you mill 3 cards. They're going to do this until they've milled over their entire deck, and then all these Narcomoebas jump out, and then they dread return, targeting their own Thassa's Oracle, and then they win the game. So what have we got here? We do have a Nadu. We got main deck Prismatic Endings. They are running the Memory's Journey tech, which can help against any sort of graveyard disruption, as long as they have the green mana available. Right, so doing it this way around, and then they're going to shred once more. Wait. They only have 3 here. They've made a mistake here. They only have 3 blue pips here. Wow, our opponent just messed that up. They just need to shred one more time with the Zephyr Illusionist. They were trying to get tricksy with it, and they made a mistake. Okay, did not need to do very much that game, I guess. They just gave it to us a bit. So how do I want to approach this? Force of Negation doesn't really work against our opponent's stuff, because their combo is a creature combo for the most part. Ensnaring Bridge, we don't really care about this. Ratchet Bomb is something that we could get behind. If we can sit this on 2, we can blow up their Illusionists and stuff, so that's not too shabby. I think it's probably the Ratchet Bomb. So we could board in the Faerie Macabre, but the Memory's Journey is so good against that sort of line anyway, it doesn't really matter. So if we want these Ratchet Bombs, what are we getting rid of? I think it's a Harbinger of the Seas. These can take out an Urza's Saga. That's about it. The other thing I'm thinking about is if we want a singleton Force of Negation, because it can counter things like Teferi, which can be a bit of a problem. But I think I'll just have the Harbinger of the Seas to counter any potential Urza's Sagas. Okay, we'll keep this one. So I think we're just going to start with a Ratchet Bomb in play. We're just going to be dead on turn 2 here. Could well be. Force of Negation, pitching Force of Negation. Sure. That was our piece of interaction gone. You just have to hope they didn't just send it here. There is the Illusionist. Now, they did mess up last time, so we'll see what happens this time. We also get to see how they've sideboarded for game 3. But this is not really the sort of combo matchup that we're well equipped to deal with here. We've got some tools for like graveyard-based combo or spell-based combo, but a creature-based combo that kind of uses the graveyard, but also can kind of dodge Faerie Macabre relatively well is an awkward one. Whereas they're going to shred a bunch here, bring back the Nomad. So what are we seeing here? Do they have the Teferi in? I can't see the Teferi in here. Yeah, they don't have a Teferi. Okay, that's really good information that they're not running the Teferi. So I don't think I actually want the Force of Negation. We didn't bring it in actually in the end, did we? I think we decided against him. We just kept the Harbinger in, didn't we? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Alright, we'll just go again. Like, maybe we could do some stuff with the Faerie Macabre. If our opponent is just going to shred, like, really hard, maybe we could do that instead. To get rid of, like, a Harbinger of the Seas. And are we going to have a time to do step through stuff? Probably, actually. I'll take out an Impulse and a stock up. Let's try this. Maybe I'll keep an Impulse in over a step through. Maybe I'll have a stock up over the step through as well, actually. Just build it lower on the step throughs. Because these stock ups can potentially find us both parts, whereas the step through can only find us one thing. Now, we could board in the Malevolent Hermit here to get through our opponent's counter magic. But I think this card might be a little bit slow for what we're trying to accomplish. Let's try a couple of Hermits, actually. We have a little bit of Graveyard Hate. This is okay. Let's play a Chrome Mox. Imprint. I think it's going to be the stock up here, because I want to have access to another blue source if something happens to our Ancient Tomb. Sorry, not our Ancient Tomb, our Chrome Mox. Just do the turn 1 stock up. Get some value going. See if we can dig our way towards... That's all right. Okay, we just got a 2 for 1. So it was a Mind Rot instead. But this is also the 4th mana we need for the Thought Lash. A Shuko, sure. An Island. I think I'm okay to jam the Thought Lash here. This gives us potential to just win the game next turn. So cumulative upkeep, if you're not familiar, it gets a counter, then you have to pay the cumulative upkeep that many times. So we are at risk of exiling our Thassa's Oracles along the way. Alright, say I have Wizard mana here. So they're going to shred with this, and then we're just going to try and blow them out with Faerie Macabre. Alright, so they keep shredding away. Nature's Charm, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Okay. I guess that's slightly easier to cast than a disenchant or a naturalize, because they have green mana as well as white mana here. Haven't hit any Narcomoebas yet. They just got a handful of Narcomoebas. They have to be going now because they don't have the green mana to do Memory's Journey in their upkeep for a win that way. Alright, so there's a Narcomoeba. And I guess we're just going to win with this Faerie Macabre. I'm going to take out Thassa's Oracle. And where is the Memory's Journey here? Get rid of those two. This fizzles. They've got no library. And we win the game. So our opponent punted the first game. They just sent it on turn 2 3 games in a row. So I guess it did make sense to have the Faerie Macabres in there. Alright, let's go to round number 2. Okay, we can keep this. There's a turn 1 Chalice, which I think is fine. And then we're just working towards the rest of our combo, and hopefully this can keep our opponent at bay for a bit. Also, the difference between a blue 1 and a 2 and a colour pip Maze of the Moon style effect is huge, because this is the thing that we're basically never casting on turn 1. Climb to the Seas, get in there. Let's get Chalice in and see what our opponent's doing. Now, this could end up being a Chalice that doesn't do anything, and that would be really annoying if we spent our Harbinger to do that. Polluted Delta. Okay, the chances are this Chalice is doing stuff. And Impulse. Okay. We'll wait till they crack this and then we'll cast Impulse in response. That way they can't daze it. We don't really care if they daze it, I suppose. Alright, we'll just let this go through for now, I think. Undercity Sewers. Because this might change what we're looking for. We might want to try and dig our way towards a Force of Will if something really bad happens. Or we could just send it next turn. Left the card on top. Alright, at end step we're going to try an Impulse out. None of these really fill me with a massive amount of joy. I think I prefer the Sink into Stupor over the other cards here. We could get Chalice and just play Chalice on 2. And just be like, okay, you don't get to play any spells. I'll take the Sink into Stupor. Not the card we're after. I'm not going to play out this Cavern of Souls into a deck that I suspect has Wastelands. We can just use this Sink into Stupor to stop whatever our opponent does that we care about. Doesn't mean we're not playing around days. So if we get the Chalice and put it on 2, we lock out our Paradigm Shift and we have to find another way of winning. So I don't really like that line. Harbinger of the Seas. This is a wizard. This is just to get something on board that they have to deal with. I suspect this won't really make a huge amount of difference in this game overall. But maybe draw out some of our opponent's resources. We don't have anything going on right now. They're just going to go get basic and ignore this. But this can attack and it can block. So it can do something. So our opponent is now the one that needs to accomplish something. Because if everything stays as is, then we win the game. Nothing at our end step. I wonder how many cards this Chalice of the Void is locking out. It feels like quite a few. There's an island. Obviously our opponent uses islands, so this is not the most useful Harbinger you've ever seen. And it does shut down our Cavern a little bit. Paradigm Shift. This is not the time nor the place for Paradigm Shift. So this can get Bowmastered. No Bowmaster. But playing out the Harbinger allows us to play a game where we don't have to worry about Wasteland on our Cavern of Souls for a bit. There is said Wasteland. If we can pressure our opponent's life total, we can shut off various things our opponent has access to. For example, reanimate spells. Wizard cycling next turn. Or rather, in our opponent's turn. A petty theft on this Chalice of the Void. Is that a thing I care about? So we could bounce this back to their hand, or we could bounce our own Chalice so that this fizzles. Do I care about keeping this Chalice around? If our opponent doesn't want us to have the Chalice, I kind of want to have the Chalice in play. I guess the issue with that is they're just going to recast it, aren't they? Alright, fine. You can have this Chalice of the Void. So now they can cast something like a Entomb, and then untap and reanimate. And that's not great for us. Okay, they're just playing the Borrower. That is fine. It could be a tempo build rather than a reanimator build. I'm much more scared of the reanimator side of things because it can just blow us out immediately. A Tamiyo. That does not feel like a card in reanimator, so we're probably looking at tempo. A Nether Goyf. Understood. 4 cards in our opponent's hand. That's quite a lot of cards. A Brainstorm. Now we can obviously bounce the backside of the Tamiyo if we need to. And that might force some action out of our opponent. But we don't have to do that now. We can do that after we've untapped and use our mana efficiently with a step through. 4 cards in our opponent's hand. Let's go cycling for a wizard. A Thought Lash. That stops a whole bunch of damage from coming in. How many counter spells do we think our opponent is sat on over there? So I think we play out the Chrome Mox here, and I'm going to imprint a Paradigm Shift. I'm going to deploy this Thought Lash. If this gets countered, it's not the end of the world. If it doesn't, we can play Thassa's Oracle, and if that doesn't work, we can Paradigm Shift it back into our deck. A Force of Will. Pitching Tamiyo. So next turn, they can buy back the Force of Will with the Tamiyo if they want to. A Thought Seize. That's pretty darn good. I guess we could have played the Chalice and Sink into Stupor back the Force of Will was the other option. But I was just hoping to just keep smashing the big haymakers that let us win the game. They've taken our Oracle. That's not actually that good. because we can paradigm shift and put this back into our deck. Stock up from our opponent. Sure. We're seeing some blue-black tempo decks play a couple of copies of this, because it's very good in the fair matchups. Let's see if our opponent goes for the getting back Force of Will line, or is just going to tick their Tammy up. I think it's correct to get back the Force here. Okay, our opponent disagrees. We obviously don't know what they found. Right, they don't want us to lose our Harbinger because they're relying on counter magic, and our Cavern of Souls blanks that. Just going to get this Chalice to the Void. X equals 1. So if we paradigm shift now, we can put this into our deck. And we have to beat this Force of Will that our opponent has here on the following turn. How do we do that with these cards? We don't, is the answer to that one. So we do need to bounce this Tamiyo. Let's sink it away. This also puts the Sink into Stupor into our paradigm shift pile so that we at least have an out if things go horribly wrong. A daze. Okay, that is unfortunate. So probably attack now by holding up the Wasteland. It means that we can't just chump block and unlock our Cavern of Souls. We could draw a Thassa's Oracle this turn and just shift Oracle. Have to remember that we have blue pips on the Harbinger, so we have a little bit more juice to our Thassa's Oracle. It's not just 2 from the Oracle itself. We potentially have 4. Right, they're not attacking it. They don't want to unlock our Cavern even though they've got a Wasteland. This Tamiyo is just ticking up rather than buying back our thing. Buying back the Force of Will. That is an interesting choice. Obviously we don't know what's in our opponent's hand, and they're just expecting to try and win the game with everything. Can I have a paradigm shift? We can have a paradigm shift. Okay. I'm going to play a second Chalice on 1, I think. So what we can do is try and Soporific Springs our own Harbinger at some point to unlock the Cavern mana. And then our opponent has to counterspell that. So they're going to draw a bunch of cards here. I think this all stems back to the turn where we went for the Thought Lash instead of the Chalice. Now, either way it would have been counterspelled. So it didn't really matter at the end of the day. But we would have had the ability to bounce something as well. A stock up. That's pretty solid. Not really sure what they need more cards for though. Did they not just draw half their library? Right, so now they're coming in here. This is an interesting choice because we can unlock our Cavern. They've already played a land here. So if we block and we draw the Thassa's Oracle, how many cards have we got left in our library? Not that many. I'm still going to take this block. If we find something like a... Because they're going to be able to remove our guy at some point, right? So this way we save a bit of damage and we unlock our Cavern, which could maybe get us where we need to go. We probably need to impulse into it and maybe the impulse doesn't resolve. We'll see what happens. There is the impulse. They have to counterspell this. If this resolves, we win the game. Right, Force of Will, pitching days. So now we're going to get stung by a Wasteland. How many Force of Wills have we got through? 2. Is there any in exile? No. So chances are they've got a third one here. They got a Borrower to bounce anything, or just to play Blowmasters. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is exactly lethal. So that's the end of that one. Felt like we weren't a million miles away. How would I like to approach this one? So we can defense grid and just sit behind our grid if we wish. That seems pretty reasonable here. We can Ratchet Bomb to blow up annoying permanents. We do not require Harbinger of the Sea, so that's an easy cut here. So that gets us at least 3 of these cards. And if we want the Ratchet Bomb just for more removal, like this on 1 is very effective into a lot of our opponent's deck. Maybe we can trim 1 step through for this Ratchet Bomb. I don't think we want the Ensnaring Bridge. So the other option here is the Malevolent Hermit, which kind of does a very similar thing to Defense Grid. Do we think we care about our opponent's pressure? Is the next question. Maybe we don't care about their pressure. We just have the Hermits. If they flip an early Tamiyo, that does seem a bit awkward for us. We could have the Ratchet Bombs to help against that, but I'm not really convinced that's where I want to be. We've got a couple of Otawaras that can bounce it. We've got a couple of Sink into Stupors. Alright, that's not bad. We can keep this. So I think this Lorien Revealed is most likely to be another island, but it could be a blue card for Force of Will. So there is a little bit of conflict between having the Defense Grid and the Force of Will, but we're trying to use the Force of Will on our turn to protect what we're doing, which is why I like having them both. You certainly see decks like Dual Combo that can run Defense Grids and Force of Wills, and they're both for use on their own turn. But maybe our opponent has permanents that we want to stop coming into play on their turn. But we'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. We'll see what our opponent does and see if we want to cycle this or not. Because this land is obviously very destructible, so we want to keep this in hand rather than playing it out. So I'm more inclined to cycle this. But we'll see what our opponent's up to. Another Goyf. Let's just island cycle now. Grab this basic island. Okay, let's play... Do I want to play this defense grid? I think I want to play the defense grid. So we could fight over this using the force, pitching the Malevolent Hermit, if we want to. We've pitched a Daze here. Would they have a second Daze? We can just use this to defend our spells later on, and maybe we don't have to pitch the Hermit. I think this is fine to let it go. That is a Polluted Delta from our opponent. A Thought Seize. They're going to take the stock up here, I think. We could just Force of Will this. If they have a Daze, we'd probably just immediately lose on the spot though. But if we Force of Will this, we have stock up into Thassa's Oracle, which is probably going to be pretty good. If they Thought Seize us, they maybe take the stock up. How bad is that for us? We're just kind of spinning our wheels a bit. If they take the Force of Will, we don't really care about that. Okay, I'm going to Force of Will this, pitching the Malevolent Hermit. Just assume that this is our A plus B wrapped up. If we get dazed, it's the end of the world, but we did not get dazed. Okay, I'll take that. We're going to take 3 damage from the Nethergoyf now. I wouldn't mind drawing an island here so we don't have to lay this out into a wasteland. We did not draw that. I will play this, naming Wizard. We'll go for a stock up here. They didn't have a daze for that Force of Will, so I think this is not going to get dazed. A Paradigm Shift. I would like a Paradigm Shift, please, and a Force of Will. So if we draw a land, I guess we're not Thassa's Oracle Paradigm Shifting straight away anyway. So we've certainly got a line to win in this game. We can Paradigm Shift supported by a Force of Will, and then we have the Thassa's Oracle. What we want to see from our opponent is a land that is not Wasteland. Or that's probably better than seeing no land here. Just play any land that isn't a Wasteland. Okay, they played a Wasteland. So if they Wasteland our Cavern of Souls, this goes into our pile when we Paradigm Shift. We just have to beat the Nethergoyf, which I think is doable here. A Sink into Stupor. Do I want this Sink into Stupor? Is it a blue card? Is it a land so we can play around days? The 3 life is so much though. I think we're just going to Paradigm Shift here, and we'll support it with a Force of Will. I don't want to pay 3 life to play this as a land. Alright, we're just in with that. Okay. I get to see our exile pile here and look what we're doing. That's probably what this pause is. Seeing what our deck is constructed of. Schooling Tile from our opponent. That's fine. So we have 4 cards in our library. I guess we just sit on what we have here. And we use the Cavern when the time comes. Our opponent only has Orcish Bowmasters as reach. So take 3 this turn, 3 the next turn. We probably have to win on the turn after that. An Underground Sea. That's not really what our opponent wants there. A Barrow Goyf. Is this where we're fighting? I don't believe it is. I think we can chump block with the Thassa's Oracle for a turn. A Defense Grid. Do I want to do anything with this Defense Grid? They could have a Daze. It's like the only thing they could have here. Right, I'm going to play this out and name Wizard. And I'm going to play this Thassa's Oracle. This is a chump block. If they have a Wasteland, then they only have 1 card in hand, and Force of Will blue card can beat 1 card. The margins here are going to be a little bit tight, but I think that's okay. I can't remember what the last card is in our pile, actually. I guess we get to see it next turn. So if we took 6 here, we wouldn't be able to use our Force of Will, so I think it's really important to get the chump block going. Our Force of Will was the other card, was it? So we can't afford to take this damage, so we do have to go now. We can Sink into Stupor, go to 1 to play the Defense Grid. If our opponent has Orcish Bowmasters, we counterspell it. If they have a Daze, that beats us because we have to pay. So Orcish Bowmaster Daze kills us here. If they have a removal spell, we can counter it. If they have a removal spell and a Daze, they can Daze our counterspell. So we probably have to play this out. And then we're dead to Daze Bowmasters again. Are we just dead to Daze Bowmasters? Whatever. I guess we can play the Defense Grid first. Although they've got the mana up there, haven't they? They've got loads of mana kicking around. So we play this, and they Bowmasters us in response. Then they don't get to play anything else. If we play this, they can't play Daze and Bowmasters if this resolves. If they Daze this, then that's fine. if they just play out the Bowmasters, we counterspell back, they counterspell back, we die. We can't play this out and this. I think we just have to play the Oracle here and hope that the Force of Will does enough. Right, is this going to resolve? Alright, looks like something is happening. Is this going to be consigned to memory with a bunch of replicates? We don't beat that either. We can counterspell one of these, but then the others get us. Yeah, I think they've just got us here. So a blue-black tempo deck like this is going to be the sort of perfect tool to deal with what we're doing. It's just a bunch of disruption and then some cheap threats that get in underneath before we're trying to combo off. So if we'd have played the defense grid, our opponent can consign to memory that, and then we have to pay 3 life and go, then we don't have Force of Will. So if they have 2 things that work, then we just lose there. If they have just the one thing like this, we could beat that. Interesting. Like, our opponent had to have something in hand. If it's like a removal spell, then we lose if we play the defense grid first. Tricky. There's only so many things you get to play around, and sometimes it just doesn't come together. If we didn't have the chump block here, that would have been okay. Like, if they didn't have this extra pressure, I guess we're still taking the damage there. Yeah, tricky one. Let's go to round 3. Alright, we have our combo here. Let's keep this one. We haven't really had a lot of opportunity to just do a fast combo this game, so let's see. Right, we're probably going to have to grind through some amount of protection here. Right, so we have to impulse. We have to at least make sure there's a card in the graveyard before we start doing anything. Because otherwise we just die to our own paradigm shift. And that's not what we want. We are in a situation where we have to play this out. And then we'll just pass it over. We get impulse, and we've got Force of Will to back things up now. Hey, Brainstorm, sure. So we have impulse into paradigm shift. We can't be thought seized off of Thassa's Oracle. Obviously, we don't know if our opponent is playing any black at all, but that's just a nice thing that we have available there. Meticulous Archive. So we're probably on some sort of Bant control-y style deck, I would imagine, since they didn't do anything in their first couple of turns outside of this Brainstorm, but that doesn't mean that they're not like a combo deck like Nadu that's just trying to get its pieces in order. Is this going to be a Bristly Bill? That is fine. You can make your Bristly Bill more bristly. Or is he more Bill? He's something anyway. Let's get Impulse in. What do I even want out of these things? I quite like having another mana source in Otawara, to be honest. To play around Days, I'm going to play out this Otawara. And I'm going to cast a Paradigm Shift. It resolved. Okay. So we've got Force of Will and 2 Thassa's Oracles to get us where we need to go. Bristly Bill, you can get bigger. That's fine. So they don't have a Nadu, because you play the Nadu first, then you play the land. So that's something for us. Which is also not a wasteland, which is very appealing to me. Not a big lover of seeing the old nomads. But it does tell us more or less what our opponent's on. How do they intend to beat our Thassa's Oracle? We have no cards in library, so that's going to work nicely for us. Right, trigger's on. You've got some main deck consigns here. You can plow this. We have 0 cards in our library, so this won't matter. Unbelievable. A main deck consign. Yep, I guess we're in the dirt. That is very annoying. Oh, this is a really annoying matchup because defense grid is something that you go, okay, I would like some defense grids, but our opponent is a combo deck as well. So if we have these defense grids, our opponent's just going to like ignore it. It's kind of annoying. The Harbinger of the Seas will stop them doing a lot of stuff because they don't really have much in the way of basic lands. So we give them loads of blue mana, but they won't be able to cast their Nadus, they won't be able to cast their Harbingers. The problem with this is we need to fit in these Malevolent Hermits, and this is probably the worst thing, so I think that should just go. This also turns off our Caverns, which isn't great. Do I want to have some sort of Force of Negation? I guess we'll have a defense grid. We can always play it on the turn we're going off. I'm not a big love of the defense grid here because we do have to consider our opponent's combo. We could have Ratchet Bombs try and blow up some of their 1-drops, make their life a little more difficult. Main deck consigned to memory, right in my heart. I bet that's a 1-of in their deck as well. The one thing that could have beaten us there. Okay, I'll keep this. If we put this out, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for our opponent to combo off the Nadu. So we do have access to the combo here. Because we can step through to get the Thassa's Oracle. We have the island. We just need another island, really. A stock up. Yeah, I'm going to stock up. That seems like the best use of our mana. I want this island. That's a given. What else do I want here? Another paradigm shift. So if things go wrong, we can shuffle everything back in again. we can have this impulse and just dig a bit better. I think we're just going to impulse. So our next turn is probably going to be step through plus impulse. We don't want any cards we put to the bottom, so we're going to impulse and then step through. Nothing from our opponent here. Does this change anything? No. A Nadu. I don't believe that is our fight here. I will cast this impulse though. Okay, we have a Thassa's Oracle. Don't hate having that. This isn't a problem on its own. Like, it can clock us a little bit, but that's not really how we're going to lose this game. I could get the Malevolent Hermit here instead. Is that better? We don't have the other blue mana is the problem. I'm just going to get the Oracle. I'm going to Island Cycle. I would like to have access to another island here. It does change the clock a little bit on our pile. Okay, so we Paradigm Shift, and then we can... See, if we Impulse, we have a chance to hit the Cavern. Right, I'm going to Impulse. We didn't hit the Cavern. We did hit another Shift, though. So I want the Shift, I want the Malevolent Hermit. If we take the island, we have the ability to play double Oracle in turn, so I'm going to take the island. And I'm going to cast this Paradigm Shift. And we can back it up with a Force if we need to. Right, we just shifted here. Okay. 5 cards in our library. One of those cards is a stock up as well, so we could just rip 2 cards out of our library immediately. And that's pretty strong. 3 mana. Teferi Time Raveler. I don't think we can allow this to resolve. Doesn't mean we're a little bit shields down. A step through. I don't believe we have anything that this finds. Now we can just bounce their guy. Doesn't feel amazing though. Okay, I guess we'll pass. I'm pretty sure we don't have anything to find with a step through. That's what we got. Stock up, impulse, impulse, Lorien Revealed are the cards. We're kind of cold to just a Force of Will from our opponent here. So there's another impulse and there's a stock up. That's it. So I guess we impulse to get through the pile faster. So if we impulse, then we can impulse again. We don't have to worry. We're just stone cold dead to this Consigned to Memory. So if they counterspell this, we're dead on the backswing. So I think we have to do this without using our Ancient Tomb. Stock up Lorien Revealed Impulse. Okay, I'll take this Impulse. So now we are just dead to Consigned to Memory. We don't have any way of beating that with our pile, so we're just going to send it and see if it's good, rather than letting our opponent have another turn to draw it. Because Consigned to Memory works through the Chalice. We're also dead to Force of Will and stuff. This Teferi really jammed us up. Because what they were going to do is they're going to bounce this and then just going to draw a million cards. So they can Consign to Memory this, and then the replicated copies don't get hit by the Chalice. Okay, so they're ploughing their own Nadu to draw a card here. They found a Brainstorm. That doesn't work. I think they should have done this in response to the Oracle, in case they found a Force. Alright, we got there. Whew. Okay, do I want to do anything differently in the sideboarding? I don't believe so. We've seen Teferi. Does that mean I want Harbingers? Probably not. Sorry, not Harbingers. Force of Negations. Probably not, because it's not great against a lot of their deck. Do I want more defense grids? I do like the defense grids. What would we trim, though? I don't think there's a good candidate. Maybe a step through. Let's try that. Our opponent is kind of like a mid-rangey sort of deck with a combo finish, rather than a dedicated combo deck. So our opponent doesn't have land disruption in their deck. So this hand does play. We can keep this, and we can go turn 1, Cavern of Souls, Lorien Revealed cycle, turn 2, Chalice for 1. Or we can just go straight into Paradigm Shift and just be like, can you deal with it? The problem with doing that is if our opponent can deal with it, we're going to have a rough time. So our opponent's going to get a Hedge Maze or Meticulous Archive here. Get a bit of Surveil, try and improve their draws. No, they've got something at end of turn they want to do. A Brainstorm. Okay. A Nomad's Encore. Yep, we got nothing for that. So they could have the Nadu combo assembled next turn. Which doesn't really feel like the sort of thing I want to happen. So I think we're going to go cycle this. Get an island. I think the plan here is to Paradigm Shift and try and kill them on the following turn. Because the amount of cards they can accrue next turn is just too many. Can I shift? Maybe they have to pitch a Nadu to counter this. Alright, now we're just in. Okay, so our opponent can draw a whole bunch of cards. But we're going to have an empty library next turn. That is a blue card. A blue mana gone. So it's going to be harder for them to cast Consigned to Memory. But I was under the impression that our opponent was going to be doing Nadu things here, and we just don't beat the Nadu things. We are pretty stone cold dead to the old consigned to memory here. No Nadu. Okay, they're cracking. This is good news for us. Tap that blue source for anything. They did not tap it for anything. Okay, well here goes the one thing we have going for us. Let's play this on Wizard. Here is the entire game. Do they have it? We put ourselves in a position where we lose to it. Okay, this brainstorm means that they are just cooked. I don't know what they can have in regards to just having this Savannah open. Because this is uncounterable. Then the trigger goes on. This does not counter triggers. Am I going to get blown out by a card I've never seen before? Every once in a while that happens, but I'm not expecting anything too weird out of our opponent's deck because it's looking like a pretty stock build. Alright, we got the match. Yeah. So I recognise that if they had the Nadu and just sent in and drew a bunch of cards, we at least have a shot of winning with our Cavern. So we took it and it worked. Excellent. Let's go to round 4. Our opener here does not have 2 mana to work with. I don't think we can keep this one. Let's be disciplined. Okay, this one works. So we've got Stock Up, Lorien Revealed. I don't think we need the Otawara here. I think that's probably what goes. So we have 2 options. We can either play out the Ancient Tomb to cycle here, or we can play out the Island to Island cycle. I think Island cycling is better for us here. We just want to play around our opponent's potential wastelands. Okay, now we have a Chalice. We're just going to drop the Chalice on one. So we don't have to worry about Entomb at the moment. Now, they can wasteland our Ancient Tomb. That'll slow us down. But the best cards in our opponent's deck aren't really working right now. Right, I will play this Island. So we can Island cycle. That's okay. I think we're just going to stock up here. Get some counter magic. Get some other bits and pieces going. Okay. I like having an Island. I like this Lash as well. Putting the Lash in Lash Gordon. So this gives us the ability to play a spell that our opponent has to respect. This just gives us a way of comboing that isn't as all in as the Paradigm Shift. Right, we've got our opponent good with the Chalice here. Okay, I think we will deploy this Thought Lash. Just get that stuck in. If our opponent expends resources on this, then that's fine for us because we've got another one and we've got Paradigm Shift. So we have a combo attempt next turn if we want it. So we'll pay the cost. What do we exile? A Force of Will. Okay. A Chrome Mox. That does allow us to play around a Daze here. I would like to cast this step. Well, sorry, cycle this step through. Going to get ourselves a Thassa's Oracle. And we can play this Chrome Mox out and we can imprint the Thought Lash. Then we can play this Thassa's Oracle. If this works with a trigger on the stack, we can exile a bunch of cards with the Thought Lash. So our opponent gets to see our whole thing. They didn't want to see it. They've had enough. Okay. I don't know what brand of blue-black deck it is. So I think we have to respect the fact that it could be reanimated and bring in the Faerie Macabres. If we're worried about our opponent doing big reanimated stuff, we could sit behind an Ensnaring Bridge. We could do some of this stuff. We could do some defense grids. I think because they are potentially like a pseudo combo deck, we probably want to have access to these Force of Negations. I think it's more likely that our opponent was playing a reanimated deck there. It's more popular than the Dimir Tempo. So we definitely want these Macabres. We don't really want these Harbingers so they can get out. They become Faerie Macabres. That makes sense. Now, if we want to add in any of these things, I like the Malevolent Hermit. Where do we fit it in, though? Maybe Step Through does tutor for it, but when are we going to tutor for it? Maybe we'll take out a Stock Up and a Step Through and get a couple of Hermits in. Because Stock Up is a 3-drop against a Daze deck, so it gets a bit awkward. I don't think we're doing the Ensnaring Bridge plan. If they reanimate an Attractor, they'll be able to get through an Ensnaring Bridge pretty soon anyway. So I think we're just going to try this with the Force of Wills as flexible counter spells, the Faerie Macabre to deal with their graveyard, and a couple of Malevolent Hermits to quash anything our opponent's up to. And the backside of this, if you're unfamiliar, non-creature spells you control can't be countered. So they can't counter the Thought Lash, they can't counter the Paradigm Shift, and then hopefully the Cavern does enough that they can't counter the Oracle. This hand is a lot slower, but it's pretty stable. We've got a turn 1 play, we've got turn 2 play and 3 plays. I think this is acceptable, but I am a little bit worried that we're just going to get reanimated on straight away and just lose. But that is the game. Our opponent has to respect the fact that we're a blue deck. They know we play Force of Will because they've seen it off of our Thought Lash. So they have to at least respect that. Again, Thought Seized. Our hand doesn't really care about Thought Seized that much, to be honest. Sure, it's pretty redundant. I'd probably just take one of the impulses. Right, they took our Malevolent Hermit. Now we can disturb this, which means we cast it from the graveyard for its disturb cost. Which would be the 3 mana, get the Benevolent Geist. I think we're just getting some land with this Lorien Revealed, working towards Thought Lash. A Brainstorm. Still not enough information to determine which blue-black build our opponent is. I guess there's a possibility they're playing Doomsday. There's another blue-black deck that has all the cards we've seen so far. A Bloodstained Maya. This could be Grixis, yeah. We're getting Thought Seized again. It's a Duress. I will... They're not going to take this Lorien Revealed, are they? Do we even care if they do? Probably not. Yep, sure, let them... More information is more difficult for them to decide what to take, in theory. They probably just take the Thought Lash as part of our combo. Seems like an easy take to me. So, our opponent could be a Storm deck, like Ad Nauseam Tendrils. I really don't know what our opponent is doing. The Duress tends to be a thing that combo decks play. This could just be a sideboard card out, something like a Grixis Control Shell. I honestly do not know. I think I'm leaning towards Ad Nauseam Tendrils, though. Like, the Chalice shut them down really hard. And all the cards we've seen are pretty consistent with an Ad Nauseam Tendrils deck. Right, let's just cycle this Lorien Revealed. Get an island out of our deck. It also explains why our opponent had a bunch of cards and no counter spells. And it explains why they don't care about the back half of this, but they only care about the front half. Because our spells being uncounterable doesn't really bother them because they're not countering our spells. They just kind of discard us and then storm off. So we can beat Past and Flame lines with this Faerie Macabre. We can dig for a Force of Will if we need to. Right, what are we going to see here? Probably another Underground Sea. And he's just going to pop off. Yep, there's another Underground Sea. Here we go. A Burning Wish. Okay. Is this going to be another Thoughtseize? Or are they going to go and get something that allows them to try and combo here? Another Duress. Okay, so we're going to lose an Impulse here. You can take the Impulse. I'm not going to cast it in response because then they get better choice of what to take. Opponent doesn't have many cards, and they now know that a Past and Flames line isn't going to work. Or a Gaia's Will line if they have that. Chalice of the Void on 1 is real good against our opponent's deck. Alright, I'm going to take the defensive line here. Let's play this one out. Let's go Chalice on 1. Like, it won last time, so let's try again. So this shuts off Hand Disruption, it shuts off cantrips, it shuts off Dark Rituals. So it's going to do a reasonable amount here. Now, they can still cast those spells for Storm, but they're not going to resolve. Now, we're a long way from actually winning the game ourselves. Right, nothing from our opponent there. They had a little think, though. An Ancient Tomb. I guess we play it out. We don't have, like, Brainstorm type stuff to put cards back. The reason we don't have that is because we don't want to just fill our own graveyard with a bunch of stuff, right? Because we want Paradigm Shift to be able to win us the game on the spot sometimes. And that just doesn't get to happen if we have, like, a bunch of cantrips in our graveyard. Okay, another Ancient Tomb. Not the one we wanted. So Faerie Macabre is an interesting one because we can use it on ourselves to make our Paradigm Shift lethal quicker. So we can just go, okay, we'll take out a couple of cards. And then we have one fewer card because it's the Faerie Macabre. So we can buy ourselves a turn. At the moment, I'm not worried about something like a Past and Flames. Because they can't cast anything through our Chalice anyway. And if they find a way of putting enough stuff in the graveyard, maybe we can chisel it away with the little fairy. But we are a long way from winning this game. Now, if we give our opponent enough time, they will find their way out of this. They have 2 mountains. They probably have something along the lines of Burning Wish for Pulverize to blow up this. Or they might have a bunch of other things like Shattering Spree or a whole bunch of other stuff. Alright, I think we're going to see what they're getting here. Consign to Oblivion. So this is return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Or target opponent discards 2 cards that you can cast from your graveyard. We don't have to worry about the backside, but the ability for them to bounce this Chalice and go off is real. So this would be a good turn to draw a Force of Will. Again, we're just treading water if we do that though. We did draw the Force of Will. I guess we pass, and then we hardcast the Force of Will on the Consign here. I think it's better to have the Chalice in play than anything else here. So we go cast it on this. If our opponent flashes this back for 5 mana, we just lose the Chrome Mox and the Faerie Macabre. So it doesn't really matter. Or we can lose this Otawara and the Chrome Mox. Neither of those really matter. Like, none of our hand really matters is kind of the problem we're in right now. We need to draw a stock up. This would be a great time to just dig our way to victory. So the reason it's better to keep the Chalice around than like hold the Force of Will and try and manipulate whatever their combo turn is that we just turn on all their cantrips and stuff. And maybe they can find their way out of us not having a Chalice. And we've already seen they've got a whole bunch of Dress and Thoughtseize action. I imagine they probably would have had at least one of those pieces if they're bouncing. So they probably would bounce that, and then they Thoughtseize us, and then Ad Nauseam us, and then we have a bad time. I guess if they have Ad Nauseam, they can just cast it next turn. We have a Chalice. What number do we put it on? What number do we put it on? We put it on 2. We shut down a bunch of their things. We also shut down our own way of winning the game, but that's probably not the end of the world. I just remember we had the Malevolent Geist that we haven't been playing. That was very loose of me. So we could play this on 2 and play the Malevolent Geist. Alright, let's bring this guy back. Yes, this is going to stop us casting Paradigm Shift and Thassa's Oracle. Paradigm Shift does not get countered because of Benevolent Geist though, and the Cavern of Souls that we have somewhere in our deck will be enough to get through the Chalice with our Thassa's Oracle when the time comes. Alternatively, we just could beat our opponent down. Alright, they just had enough. So all their outs to Chalice probably cost them 2. Yeah, we didn't really know what we were playing until game 2, about halfway through game 2, and we managed to get there. When Chalice is good, it is real good. Well, that's 4 rounds, and we are currently 3-1. So the 4-1 is within our grasp. Let's see if we can grab it. Okay, I don't mind this one. We can keep this. We can do a Impulse early doors. A Forest. An Elvish Reclaimer. How scary is Elvish Reclaimer to me? Like, there's a lot of nonsense, that card. Alright, what am I going to get rid of? I think Thought Lash is going to be a useful card in this matchup. But I also think Paradigm Shift might just be able to win us the game early doors. Alright, we're going to go for the pitch in the Thought Lash. This makes our Chrome Mox so much worse. I also don't really like the Chalice right now. There is a bit of tension with having a Chrome Mox Force of Will deck, that's for sure. Lair of the Hydra. Just some green mana over there. This can be another guy. Scythe Cat Cub. Yeah, that guy's cool. Oh, is our opponent doing that thing that we did before with the escape shift, where they're just going to blow us up? That'll be pretty funny. Okay. Play this, and we can step through to get our little friend. If we draw a land next turn, we can just go and try and win the game. Big fan of trying to win the game. If something really bad happens, we can emergency impulse. Once upon a time. That does not strike me as a really bad thing that we need to try and dig for an answer for. A Noble Hierarch. Gaia's Cradle. Yep, this is going to pump this cat. Then they're going to play the Hierarch. And then they're going to beat us for 4. Which is fine. 4 is not our entire life total. A little bit worried about Scape Shift. Right, let's do some wizard cycling. Get the Oracle. Draw a land. Not a land. Okay, we still Paradigm Shift here. The Force of Will is certainly handy. And we're going to draw a blue card that we can imprint on our Chrome Mox next turn anyway. So I think we're in pretty good stead. If our opponent is running white spells that we have to be aware of because of this Hierarch, then that could suck for us. But I don't know, I just got the feeling our opponent is just running mono green. And this is just, you know, a dork that pumps that guy. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they are white. There's no way that you can stack this to get the double where you want it. It's based on when it resolves, not when it activates. Or triggers, sorry, not activates. It's a triggered ability. So we have a Force of Will to cover the scariest thing our opponent does. We can take a turn off to play a Chalice for 1 to stop Swords to Plowshares. I like the spot we're in. A Dryad Arbor. Okay. If they just have the Hierarch up, then I think that's okay. Okay, so this is 7 damage. So next turn, presumably, we're dead. So we do have to go this turn. My opponent has so much mana over there. We drew another Force of Will. Okay, let's jam this Oracle with Force of Will backup. What have you got? They can endurance us and we still have 2 blue pips, so that's fine. 4 mana. Talongate of Madara. That's a real doozy, isn't it? Yeah, I think that beats us, doesn't it? So they have lethal damage. This won't give us the blue pips we need to survive. But like I said, they had a land, so we're just dead. Yeah, I think they just got us there. Awkward for us, for sure. How do I want to address this one? Ensnaring Bridge can stop them just hitting us with creatures. I don't think we have to care about Malevolent Hermit type stuff. I like the Harbinger of the Seas here, and I don't mind the Ratchet Bomb. So we've got 4 cards here that I like the look of. I think the Force of Will makes a lot of sense here. This is kind of awkward when we're trying to work out what we cut from our package when we're not cutting the Harbinger of the Seas, to be honest. Because this will stop that exact line from beating us. I guess we've been trimming on step throughs a little bit, so maybe we can have a Ratchet Bomb over a step through. Maybe 2 of those. Maybe an Impulse becomes an Ensnaring Bridge. Maybe you'll trim 1 Chrome Mox because we don't want multiple Chrome Moxes in our hands. I'm going to try this one. I don't know if our opponent's running natural order or anything. That's something we have to consider. Okay. We don't have any dig here. There's no... We're just going to be trying to draw off the top to find our combo. I think we can do better than that. Okay, I like the Chalice. I'll keep this. I get rid of an Ancient Tomb. We don't want 2 of those. Alright, here comes Chalice of the Void. So I don't believe our opponent is doing anything on turn 1 here. Maybe we can work towards hard casting as Lorien Revealed. It's a possibility. Chalice. Another Chalice on 1. I don't think we need to do that. Right, so we're probably going to see a 2-drop of some description here. Maybe the cat. White of the Reliquary. An Ancient Tomb. I'd rather lose this than our second blue source, because we obviously need blue for Oracle. So this is just putting a creature into the bin to grow the white. That's not a mistake. They're basically spending 1 to put a +1/+1 counter on this. Is kind of how it works out in the end. We're going to take a bit of a hit from our own Lorien Revealed here. And if they have a Bowmasters, that's going to be horrible, actually. Can I realistically run this Scythe Cat and Bowmasters? Probably not. Okay. We found lots of part A of our combo. But we need the B. If we draw a Paradigm Shift, we can win next turn. Potentially. Our opponent can do Talongates of Madara stuff. Right, they're getting the Dryad Arbor. They just want to beat down more. Oh no, they're turning it into something else. So this is just to get another creature. So they can go get another Dryad Arbor. And then attack for 5. That's like half our life total. That's a little bit concerning, isn't it? So our opponent's playing a deck that's called Cradle Control, which kind of uses these toolboxy land stuff and Zeniths and Fiend Artisans to sort of keep applying pressure and manipulating whatever they need to at the time. Yep, we're just going to take a hit here. We might not be long for this world, you know. This feels tricky. Force of Will, you are a little on the late side. So we could bounce both of these creatures, but we know they can phase it out. It's not really going to matter. So I think the play here is stock up and go from there. I don't believe we're going to win this one. We have a Paradigm Shift and we have a Chrome Mox. We haven't played a land yet. This works if our opponent has nothing. So we know they have. The ability to get the Talongates here because they can sacrifice this to get a Talongates. So if they Talongates our guy, we lose. They can definitely Talongates here. So if we step through and they bounce these 2. If we bounce these 2, they just get a Talongates and protect this. And then we're dead. I don't believe we can win at all here. Because if a Talongates is in their hand, they can play it. If it's not in their hand, they can go fetch it. And this becomes a 5/5. And then it comes back on their turn. This is a sorcery, not an instant. So that really doesn't help us out. We could obviously play this out. Paradigm Shift. We can attempt it and hope our opponent makes a mistake. But I don't believe we can win this game. If we do this, maybe our opponent goes for something else instead. I think they're just going to go for the Talongates line though. It's the easy way of doing this. And then we won't have a creature to block because they phased this out. I don't think there was any way that we could puzzle through this one. Just the tricky bits and pieces. An Endurance. A pitch cast Endurance. that will put a third card. Right, so we obviously counterspell this, go to 1, then our opponent just gets the Talon Gates and we die. Unless they've boarded out the Talon Gates. They can have another Endurance here, that also plays. 4 mana. Yep, they're just putting in the Talon Gates. So it was in their hand. But yeah, they beat us again the same way they did before. Unfortunate. Wheels came off at the end there. I thought we were going to have the 4-1, and then it all suddenly just fell apart due to Talon Gates. We also got beaten up by someone having a main deck consigned to memory that ruined our day, and we just couldn't really beat through it. So a 3-2 is, you know, still a 60% win rate, but obviously a very small sample size. Let's talk about the deck. So, I'm obviously a big fan of Lash Gordon, and variants of Lash Gordon. I've played a lot on the channel. I normally like to have access to things like Magus of the Moon, but Harbinger of the Seas has kind of filled that role now, and this is the first time I really got to play with the Harbinger of the Seas build, I think. And this was okay, but this is not the same as a Magus. It doesn't come down on turn 2. Well, I guess it sometimes comes down on turn 2 over Chrome Mox. But this isn't as easy to... You definitely can't get it on turn 1 like you sometimes can with a Magus in the build to have Lotus Petal. And a lot of decks are happy to have blue mana anyway. So, certainly not as useful, but obviously it pitches to everything and it is in our colours, so it does make sense to run this. And when it is good, it is very good. So, how do I feel about this build overall? Like, the stock-ups felt pretty good. We were digging pretty deep with them. Impulse still feels kind of rubbish. Like, 2 mana is so much mana in the format. And it just doesn't feel like exactly what we need right now. But I understand why it's playing it, and it obviously makes sense. I think this list, or a list very similar to this, went 5-0 in a league. So, you know, it's obviously got the juice to perform. But, you know, Impulse is certainly below the standards of, you know, your Brainstorms and Ponders in terms of just raw power level. It costs twice as much to do basically the same thing. But it is instant speed and allows us to play the Chalice. Now, you could argue that maybe Chalice isn't the thing that we necessarily need in this deck. The reason it's in here, though, is because we're a mono-blue deck. We don't necessarily interact very much. So how are we going to get this Chalice to do the things we need it to do? And those things that we need it to do is stopping our opponent cantripping a little bit, maybe stopping their removal if we're doing a Thassa's Oracle line where we don't have an empty library, because that happens a lot more with this deck than something like Breakfast. This is another thing we need to get this to do is stop hand disruption. So, you know, it has a lot of use. It can slow our opponent down. But if we're ever on the draw, this can sometimes feel a little bit slow. And we are playing things like Ancient Tomb, which did come back to bite us because we didn't have enough life to try and work out what we were doing on that last game. Like, we could have played a little bit slower if we didn't have this. Maybe find a Sink into Stupor and bounce their guy. Obviously, if they have a Talon Gates in hand, we still lose, which they did, but we would have been able to play around it a lot more. Or the Otawara to bounce them. But yeah, this deck seems fine. It doesn't seem like my favourite iteration of this deck I've played. I think something I would be interested in trying out at some point would be a blue-white build with things like Meddling Mage. Because it does feel like every deck has one thing that you're worried about, right? You know, whether it was like the Consigned to Memory. How can we stop Consigned to Memory? We're just stone cold dead to Consigned to Memory all the time here. And the problem with that is so many decks, like every single blue deck, in fact, has Consigned to Memory in the sideboard, apart from us, it seems. But generally speaking, almost every deck has Consigned to Memory in the sideboard. And that is not a card that we can reliably beat with our deck. We're just kind of cold to it, unless we find a way of like tapping them out somehow. I don't really know how we do that. Are we supposed to play something like Mana Short? I don't know. But maybe if we're already playing things like Ancient Tomb and Cavern of Souls, exposing ourselves to Wasteland, why not just play a blue-white build where we get access to Meddling Mage? And then in the matchup, okay, what is the one card that beats us? Okay, let's play as Meddling Mage, name that one card. And then we can also maybe play some other wizards here and there and get a bit of extra source going. Now, obviously, Meddling Mage plus Harbinger of the Seas is not necessarily the best combo in the world, because we need white mana for the Meddling Mage, and this is going to take us off of white mana. However, they're kind of for different matchups, right? This is for matchups where we want to mess with our opponent's mana, things like Eldrazi, things like lands, whatever. Or like the big control decks, like the 4-5 color control decks that want to have access to multiple colors, we can shut them off of that. Whereas the Meddling Mage is largely going to be for, you know, a lot of blue decks where we want to just say, okay, it's another way that we can get through your counter magic. So we can name Force of Will and we don't have to worry about days. Or we can name the Consigned to Memory if we're worried about that. And against combo decks, it also helps on that front too. So that's something I would really like to try. I'd like to try some Meddling Mage Lash Gordon at some point, and I'm sure I'll get around to it. There's so many cool things to do in Legacy that it's often quite a break between me playing one iteration of a deck and the next iteration. But that's Legacy. I want to play so many cool things, and there are many cool things out there. So if you want to see some more Lash Gordon, let me know. If I get lots of views on a channel that plays Lash Gordon, you're going to see more Lash Gordon. That's how it works. Alright, I think we're done with this one today. Deck seems fine. I'd like to jam it a bit more before I can give a full assessment of how good I think it is. But I think maybe 3 Harbingers feels like a little bit too many. I'm not sure what I would want in that spot instead. And I understand the Chalice, but I sometimes wonder if we would want a different sort of build. I think given the fact... Sorry, I said I was nearly done and then I just had some more thoughts. So given the fact that graveyard decks are everywhere and are really strong right now, I don't understand why our sort of hate slots are necessarily going into Harbinger of the Seas. I understand having one that we can tutor for with a step through, but if we have, let's say, some graveyard hate that we could direct at our opponents or at ourselves, that can speed up our paradigm shift. You could even play a deck that is running your brainstorms and your ponders and really utilizing that and going into blue-white with your cantrips and then just having some graveyard hate in the main deck. Because at the moment, if I was playing like a Grixis control deck or whatever, I would probably play 2 pieces of graveyard hate in the main deck. I think we're at that point in the format when like the best deck is blue-black Reanimator, and the second best deck, if we're looking at top 8 finishes and stuff, is Oops All Spells. Just having some like graveyard hate is going to be really solid. So we could have something along the lines of even a Tormod's Crypt. If you want to keep the Chalice, you could run 2 Tormod's Crypts, 1 Harbinger of the Seas. And honestly, I think that would be a pretty reasonable thing to do given the format right now. Or you could run something like a Relic of Progenitor style card if you're trying to cut out these Chalices and have the better cantrips so we can actually start, you know, pondering and stuff like that without having to worry about filling our graveyard. I have seen builds of this in the past with some Delve cards in, so you can run Delve to exile your own graveyard, and those were like builds with a Murktide Regent backup plan. They actually felt really good to me when I played those. But yeah, deck is pretty sweet. I think there's a lot more iterations and improvements to be made. I think this would be my first little tweak, and I would like to try some quite different restructurings of the deck. Stock up did seem good. This definitely seems like the best digging effect that we have if we're not running any 1-mana cantrips. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out, doesn't cost you anything, and can get me towards that lovely milestone of 5,000 subscribers before my birthday in April, which is a little over a month away, so hit that subscribe button. Alright, once again, thanks for watching and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.